Hi everyone, it's my fifth video now for stages of learning. So hopefully you know these three stages already. It starts off down here with the cognitive stage, the associative stage, on the autonomous stage. So just make it very clear with these words. I want you to use these words all the time, but just remember the cognitive stage of learning is the initial stage of learning. This one, the associative stage, is the intermediate, and the autonomous stage is the final. Now what we're trying to get all our learners, if you use the basketball example, is to fly through these stages of learning and hopefully get to the autonomous stage. So I'm going to talk through each stage with you. Okay, so the cognitive stage here is the mental image and the picture is formed of the skill. So this is the example of the basketball. Mental rehearsal helps the learner to understand what needs to be done. And the thing is, for each subroutine that they're doing, they really need to concentrate and there's conscious thought to what they're doing. So this little girl here probably thinking about what she's doing with her arms, with her feet, how high the ball's bouncing. She might move her feet and her arms. And she'll be thinking about all these things individually, which is very difficult to do. And they probably won't flow. There'll be sort of jerky movements within there. The learner is able to use intrinsic and kinesthetic feedback. So intrinsic is what's going on in her head. She doesn't know if she's getting it right or wrong. So she's got nothing to compare it against because at the minute she's getting this mental picture which hasn't quite been formed. So in terms of her giving herself some feedback, it's very difficult. The kinesthetic feedback, okay, is the feel using her joints, her fingers. It'll be the bounce, listening to hearing the bounce. So it's the feel of the movement, and she doesn't have that at the moment because it's all new to her. Now, what is really important is that she's getting external feedback, either through visual or verbal cues. So a coach is absolutely imperative at this stage of learning because she can't give her feedback. It's got to come from external, so a coach is really important. And finally, if you watch this girl play basketball, you would see that her movement is jerky and it doesn't flow. So just think about in your own sport where you have seen someone at this cognitive stage of learning. I mean, if you went and watched any of our Year 7 lessons, you'd see quite a few students at the cognitive stage. And obviously the job of the teacher is to try and get them to progress further up. So that's the cognitive stage of learning, or the initial stage. Now we move on to the associative stage of learning, okay, the intermediate. Okay, there's matching and association with the mental model of the performance. So they have got a mental image, and what they can start doing is matching it and associating it with what they've got in their head. So you'll be doing the dribble through the cones. Okay, again, you might want to think about the type of practice and the learning theories they're using there. Operant conditioning. Okay, think about that, changing the environment. The motor program begins to form and fewer mistakes are made. Okay, so this mental motor program in their head is starting to be developed and there's less mistakes occurring. Practice or rehearsal occurs. So again, where practice is key. And one of the key differences between the cognitive and the associative stage is less reliant on extrinsic feedback. They can start giving their own feedback in their head and comparing it to the mental image that they did have at the very start of the cognitive stage. They can start sort of comparing themselves to the perfect model. Kinesthetic feedback can be now used because they now have got the feel of it. The increased fluency and the rhythm and efficiency. Okay, so it's starting to look a bit better now. And some never move beyond this stage, and it's the longest phase. So a lot of people, this is where we stay, and we don't get out of this phase in here. You think about it when you're trying to learn. If you're trying to learn this for the first time, okay, I'm explaining it to you for the first time, you don't really know what's going on. Now here you've got a mental image, you're trying to get your knowledge for what I'm saying and comparing it to your knowledge. Okay, at the associative stage, it'd be really good if you paused it actually now and tried to just think of some examples you could give for the cognitive and the associative stage. Then we go on the autonomous stage. Okay, so obviously this is where we get our experts. Okay, an accurate, grooved, overlearned motor program is fully formed. These are the key words that you need to be using: grooved, overlearned, motor program. The motor program is dribbling. Okay, that is the motor program that is there. Most importantly, we've got this stored in the long-term memory. Once it's in the long-term memory, it can't get out. It's in there for life. You think about how you've learned how to walk over the years or ride a bike. Okay, it's in your long-term memory. It will stay there forever. Movement is fluent with few mistakes, If you look at this, little conscious control is needed, and we compare it down here. Conscious thought of all the subroutines. Now, this person's doing it without thinking. Okay, even look at his face. He's not actually looking at the ball. We'd compare that to the two people below. They're really having to focus on the subroutines. The performer can reference intrinsic kinesthetic feedback, giving a spare attention to capacity. So if he can give his own feedback and he's got his own kinesthetic feedback, he can use more of his attention on something else. Okay, so we're looking at maybe pointing with his hand or thinking about his next move. He doesn't have to think about actually bouncing that ball up and down. So he might be looking at his teammates for the run or the pass or the shot. And the performer may revisit the associative stage to finely tune the skill. Now, this is a key thing. You can go from here and drop into here on occasions. So this person might be the autonomous stage of learning, but maybe through lack of form, they might want to drop down into associative stage of learning and come back up. Okay, so the performer may revisit the associative stage of learning to finely tune the skill. So that concludes all three. Now, what I'd like to do is just either at the end of this video or pause it, have a look and see if you can give a different example or try to recall the characteristics of each. Now, if you look at the very bottom here, I've just added in do not confuse the cognitive stage of learning with the learning theory. Okay, they are completely separate. Cognitive stage of learning is not at all linked to the cognitive learning theory. So make a mental note of that, please. All right, thank you.